Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's see what happens and see what comes out of my face as I watch.
Today, even when we was doing the obstacle thing, you threw out, "Oh, bitch."
You understand why I called you a bitch? I can't do it.
Why? Explain this to me, and then that's going to be the last time you're going to do that.
Yeah. Kelly can see through his BS, clearly. Yeah, I can't imagine what's going to come out of his mouth. Ed's probably going to say something like, well, you called me out, or you were insulting me or something. But to refresh your memory, Ed clearly cheated in the exercise. Whether he was trolling or shenanigansing, I don't know. But he did cheat, and it was obvious, and to everyone, not just Kelly. He took off his mask, and I think Jovi and Kelly both said, well, you cheated. And then Ed called Kelly a bitch in a way that was hostile, in a way that was even more hostile than being accused of cheating, even if he wasn't cheating, which he was cheating, which he later admitted. So I can't imagine a possible excuse here making any sense, but it'll illuminate his mindset that if he gives in, he is nothing. A desperation to always be right and always be superior, and never admit you have a flaw, never admit that you're wrong, because if you admit that, then you and everyone will know that you are nothing, and that's everything that you're trying to avoid. So let's see what he says.
Whatever, man. Don't
I'm
try
letting you know, right? What do you mean? No. You're not going to talk down on me. I'm not Liz.
You better watch who you step.
Okay, so then Kelly basically threatens him. Ed says, you're not going to threaten me. Okay. If I were a little birdie on Kelly's shoulder, I would say, don't say the threat. Unless your goal is to start that kind of dynamic with him. And maybe it was, but if you're just trying to get through to him, and you're trying to have a conversation, you're trying to work it out with him, trying to get him to change, then there's another way to say that, and it's justified, I guess. No, it's not justified. For someone to call you names and then you say, the next time you call me a name, what? I'm going to punch you in the face. It's certainly normalized behavior, but there's a lot of problems in the world that are based on that policy, particularly for men. So yeah, he should have refrained from threatening. Now, in terms of the defensive pattern for Ed, there's a possibility that he was just looking for something like that to throw everything off, because he didn't want to answer that question, because he had no excuse for calling him a bitch. So he said, oh, he just threatened me, so I'm going to say, you don't threaten me, and then we're going in a whole other direction, and then I can avoid having to have any question about my superiority being brought up.
To when you're going to call another man a bitch, because you might get your fill plowed.
You think I'm afraid of anybody?
You don't have to be afraid.
You don't have to be
No.
afraid. That might
You
be
think
part
I'm
of
afraid
the
of anybody?
problem.
I don't care
No,
who
but
they
you need
are.
your mouth back.
And interestingly, Angela is trying to be the intermediary. She has a connection with Ed. She's trying to use that. She's getting frustrated. It's just interesting to see her in that role.
You both jumped on me, and I'm going to jump on you.
Nobody jumped on you. Nobody.
You jumped on me.
We were in our corner, and
You jumped on me, bitch.
once again. All right, I'm out.
Okay, so Kelly isn't going to punch him in the face. Good call. And he's going to leave. Yeah, you don't have to be in a jacuzzi with Ed. You can just bounce. So that's going to happen.
I know better. I know when I need to keep my mouth shut, but that probably has a lot to do with my past. I've been bullied all my life, and I've never really had anybody to stand up for myself other than me. So
yeah, and we could see that. So it's not an excuse, but it's interesting the way he phrases it, given everything that we've seen. It's like, I know when I should keep my mouth shut. You also should know when you just should agree with criticism, or accept that you might have a flaw, or accept that you might not come across to other people the way you're intending. That's a different phrase. And I think that's the tricksiness of his presentation to people like Liz and maybe other people in his life. He always will say something political, in a sense. It's like this very vague statement that for me in the beginning, when I would hear him say those phrases all the way back a few years ago, I would insert something that was a positive, something I was hoping that he meant by it. But I think he's demonstrated, at least in the edits anyway, that he doesn't actually mean the things that I was hoping he meant. He's giving lip service, or maybe he's admitting, he's admitting what he's admitting. He's saying, I should have kept my mouth shut, which isn't admitting that he actually might be criticizable or that he has a flaw. But there's always a but. It's never, sometimes I should keep my mouth shut, period. There's always a but. And when I deal with this in my office, I will immediately jump on the but. And I will say, okay, there's the but. Everything you say from now on completely negated what you said earlier, depending, in all likelihood. You can get to the but you want to wait for the but, because those who wait for the but get the prize. Meaning that if you take it one clause at a time, you say, I should have kept my mouth shut. If you're talking to Kelly, it's like, you're right, I should have kept my mouth shut. I should have just listened. Period. Establish that fact. End of topic. Okay, I'm going to change the subject. I have another thing I want to talk about, that is, I felt insulted by you. When you say, I should have kept my mouth shut, but you were insulting me, then all people hear is, you're just blaming them. You're saying, I did something wrong, but only because you did something wrong. And that isn't admitting you did something wrong. So, given everything we see on the show, especially that one season where he was with Liz on the couch and they're at that bar in the city, and he's saying I'm sorry a few times because he really believes he might have lost Liz. And then once Liz is starting to open up again, and then he just really starts laying into her. We'd seen that enough times where I think his problems are pretty severe, and it's going to take a long time for him to change. But he would have to really want to change, is the thing. And I've worked with many people in this category of hypothesis and conceptualization, and even when they want change, when they come to me for help, when they come to specialists for help, it takes a long time. And any kind of movement towards health, they will think, I'm all better now, and they'll drop out of therapy. Even though they're like 0.1% down the road, it's really hard. So, yeah.
Liz, I got water splashed in my face.
I didn't mean to splash in your face. I was doing
No, it's good, but we can't, exactly, I need to defend my man, I get it.
You did,
but,
did
we
good,
can't, we can't talk about, oh, he called me a cheater.
This whole thing about defend your man or defend your woman stuff doesn't make any sense. Yeah, under the circumstances that I think you want to defend, you should want to defend your partner if it calls for it. But if someone is criticizing your man on something that if anyone knows, Liz knows that he interrupts and he never admits he has a problem, and he defends and he never admits that he makes a mistake. So if anyone should be encouraging Kelly to say more of this, it would be Liz. Okay, thank you. But Liz wasn't going along with either of it. Liz was just being quiet about it. You could also argue that stepping in would be bothersome. If my wife was in a conflict with someone, which I can't even imagine happening, and I were to step in, it would be considered sexist that she can't handle herself, so I have to step in. There's a lot of circumstances, and it's not automatic. And so this idea that Liz is somehow wrong for not stepping in, and Ed is upset about that. It's just this triangulation issue, and also Ed feels demoted. So for people with these kinds of problems that I am hypothesizing that I would investigate if I were to work with someone like Ed, of grandiosity, what I will call narcissism, but that is not that within even close to the definition of what the internet uses that word for. But it is a defensive narcissism, meaning that the individual has split off there's a part of themselves that believes that they're nothing, and then there's another part of them that believes they are perfect all the time. And for children, they will often have these lack of integrations. But when you go through these sorts of traumas of being neglected or harmed in some way, it can have these splits remain, and then they become solidified over time, and they'll play themselves out in this adult manner that's different. Point is if that is what's going on, he feels demoted, and he might even feel like he screwed everything up because the hot tub fun party was just getting going, and then he got defensive. It'd be normal, even if he thought that he was right to defend himself, you just feel kind of crummy because people don't like you, and maybe the audience won't like you that's watching the television show, and you need some way of climbing back up onto your throne. And your partner is an easy target because you believe that your partner isn't going to leave you. And we could imagine that he would conclude that about Liz, or even that Liz is expendable, that even if Liz leaves me, at least I can use her one last time to establish myself as superior. Especially the way that Liz tends to react, or the way that Ed thinks the way that she reacts. He thinks that she's stupid or immature. He's always saying that under pressure. So what people will do in situations like this, when they're at work, for example, and narcissistic individuals are at work, they will be nice and diplomatic because they know through experience and through logic that they can't say what they really want to say, because then they will be fired and they won't be able to be superior, right? So they have to pick their battles. They have to choose who they're going to superiorize themselves to, and so they'll incur some deficit to their narcissistic supply when they're at work, and then they go home though, and then it's just hours of blabbing and venting and putting people down and making people feel dismissed. And it might not be overt. There's an overt version of this where you just come home and literally you're just insulting everyone. But it could look like the individual is just sharing their day. They're just sharing their feelings. They're really upset about something. But as a listener to that, you just feel like you can't get a word in edgewise. Anything you say is just like, yeah. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, and you just feel like you're this inanimate object that the person is recording their thoughts into, like you're a tape recorder or something. And it feels demeaning. It feels like you're lesser. It feels powerless. And if you're with someone like that long term, it's likely you already came with that tendency anyway to just sort of invisibilize yourself or mouse-eyes yourself, and then you fit well with that narcissistic person, and then it became exaggerated over time, depending. And so for Ed, Liz might even know that, here we go. Ed feels insulted, so I'm going to get it. So I don't want any part of that.
Ed's got to learn his consequences. This is one of the reasons why Ed and I are here. He doesn't learn from any of his mistakes, and he should not be defended right now.
Yeah. And she said earlier to Angela, stop enabling Ed. And it's possible that Liz has been told by her therapist or her friends, or just knows herself, that I have an impulse to save him because I feel bad for him, and that's my pattern. But that doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't even serve Ed, because he needs to learn that he can't just do whatever he wants to and never admit he has any problems. He needs to learn from his own mistakes. And so I'm not going to save him every time.
Just you two talk.
Okay.
No, you talk with your.
I can't talk, and I'm sorry. I love you, Andrew, but you speak over everybody.
Oh, bitch, don't go there, mother. I call you up.
So then Liz is just waiting to go home, and I'm thinking, okay, good, just go. You don't need. And Angela seems real determined to make everyone stay there, and I wonder if the producers put her up to it or something. They said, because I can't imagine that Angela would be that desperate to keep Liz in the hot tub, and I think they've been there for a while, and so she's really going after her. I mean, there's a possibility that Angela wants to be a good friend to Ed, but she's being extremely pushy. And then Liz, as a parting shot, says, you talk over everyone, and then that somehow flips a switch for Angela, and now God knows what's going to happen here.
Bitch, because I will straighten your now. My got the right one now. No. Don't apologize. You got the right one now. Don't walk away now.
Okay, this could still be shenanigans of her and Angela trying to create something for the cameras. We understand there's a lot of cameras around, a lot of crew around, so we understand that. By the way, I talked with a producer on Love is Blind and The Ultimatum, and I learned a lot. I'm not going to talk about everything I learned because there were a lot of things. They're a fan of the YouTube channel and have been for a long time, and they reached out to me and said that, hey, if you ever want to learn what happens behind the scenes, feel free to ask me questions. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, because so much of what happens on these shows is omitted because they don't show the context. They don't show the cameras. They don't show the producers. They don't show the influences. And I'm not trying to create an expose for reality TV. It's more the more I understand of someone's context, the more I understand of who these individuals are and why they're reacting the way that they are. So for this producer, what they were telling me was that, at least for Love is Blind and Ultimatum, they are dedicated to trying to make the cast members feel as natural as possible, and they can't have all the crew around. So they do everything they can to minimize the amount of humans that are interfering with the conversation. So one of the things that they told me was when they're in the apartments in Love is Blind or in Ultimatum, so you have a couple, they will have them mic'd up so the audio person can be in another room, and that's what they were telling me, is like the couple will stay in one room. It's a 2-bedroom apartment. The couple stays in one room, and then the crew and all their equipment are in another room, and the audio person is in another room monitoring the lapel mics that the cast members have, and then you have 2 camera operators, and then you have like 8 production crew members in that room. You have like assistant producers and all these people, and what they're trying to do is they need to be there in order to monitor things and to manage all the tech stuff and taking notes on like what's happening so they know what questions to ask. But they don't want to be in the room because they don't want to interfere. They were telling me that like on one scene, the couple was on a boat, and that's harder to hide all the crew, right? So what they did is they had a second boat, and the crew would have to lay down on the ground because the walls of the boat weren't very high. So they were all laid down on the ground, listening to the audio. So because they didn't want to interfere, or they wanted to be as less of an interference as possible, so that the cast members can feel natural. They could just be themselves and do whatever they would do naturally. But with this show, I have a feeling that they don't necessarily care about it that much, and there could be several cameras, several lighting people and producers and assistants and gophers, and that's one thing I learned. It's like it takes a lot of people on location in the field to actually pull off what they're doing here. So it's possible that because whenever the cast member needs like something, or one of the crew needs a water or something, there has to be someone there to go get that stuff, because they're at a random place. It's not like they can just turn around to the fridge or to the trailer and get it. Someone has to, and then all the decisions that have to be made. These on the fly decisions. Like right now, there's probably a producer behind the scenes going like, okay, yeah, camera, follow them, or something. Or if the situation is getting out of hand, the producer might, no, okay, camera's off. Hey, people, this is going too far. How about everyone take a break? Like they'll do that at times. So we just need to know the context is my point. So I don't know about what Angela's doing right now. Is it shenanigans? Is she pressured to somehow do this? But at the very least, what we can comment on is that there's an hypothesis about Angela that she has humiliation trauma, and that was she was being triggered somehow around Liz leaving. Maybe even Angela has some sort of trauma about parents being divorced. She seemed to be kind of treating Liz and Ed kind of like that. Like, everyone calm down, everything will be okay. Anyway, so then Liz is walking away, and Liz says that you talk too much or you talk over people, which Angela does, like more than Ed does. probably more than any other cast member we've ever seen. That she's probably going to talk over Liz right now. She already is. And then she is insulted, Angela, which will cut to the core and trigger her. Then her solution, her defense against the humiliation trauma being triggered in her is to humiliate someone else and overpower them, which seems to be happening right now, which is upsetting to watch.
I'm not Ed. I'm not Ed. I took up for you and Ed. Do not.
I'm being very calm.
Listen, if you're going to run that mouth, you back it. I don't deserve it.
So finger in the face, threatening, intimidation, standing over someone, not letting them walk away. And where's the Ed stepping in at this point? And maybe he will, but if we have a principle or some sort of weird rule that you're always supposed to defend your partner, then where is Ed? But Ed might say, well, Liz deserved to hear that because she didn't stand up for her man.
What you just said? I ain't said talked over you. That was Molly. No, bitch. Okay. That was Molly and Kelly. So why don't you walk your brave ass and tell them that and see what Molly tell you. Don't ever talk to me like that again.
Angie.
No, go.
The only one who's mad right now is you.
No, bitch, you run your
Yeah, that's good. The only one that's mad right now is you. Yeah, that's good. It's a very calm response. Another thing she could have just walked away. It's really hard to do that in that situation. It's so compelling to say just something like whatever, and I don't know. But there's probably nothing that she could say that would cause Angela to stop. I think the only thing that's going to make Angela stop is if she somehow is she going to follow her inside? Golly. If I were in Liz's shoes, this would be very bothersome to me, like adrenaline-wise, fight or flight-wise. Liz seems to be handling it okay, at least on the surface. There's also a possibility that she's not handling it, or that she is handling it normally, meaning that she has a lot of adrenaline going right now. But we've seen this behavior before from Angela and others on this show, so it seems kind of normal. But this is not normal. This is abusive. It's intimidation. For what? Because Liz wanted to go home. She wanted to go to bed. And she said, you overtalk, or you talk over people sometimes. That's what deserves. Earlier Angela's talking about how much she loves Liz and Ed, or is this all shenanigans too? I don't know. And we've certainly seen this before. It's just more abuse from Angela.
Nothing. I'm not Ed. I'm not Ed.
running my mouth.
I'm not Ed. When did I over talk to you? When did I?
I can't even. I don't want to even. I can't even. What is Liz supposed to do here? And producers, anyone? Is this not crossing a line? Can we not say, okay, Angela, you can say your piece, but you can't do that? Especially to Liz. I mean, Liz is a defenseless person. She's not a fighter. She can't meet fire with fire. She's just gonna let it happen. Yeah, we've seen Angela do this before. I've seen Angela something particular about this. Yeah, there's something. I mean, I'm gonna have vicarious PTSD just watching. I don't even want to watch it. I'm gonna do a reaction video without watching. How about that?
Over talking. I sat there and let you talk. I sat there and took up for you. When did I over talk you? Okay, now cry now. Cry now. Cry. Okay,
I commend Ed, I guess, for finally doing something and probably doing what's best. Instead of facing Angela, it's just like, okay, Liz, let's just go. So even if this is shenanigans, what an awful human being. Now, if Liz is in on it and it's some sort of like pro wrestling situation, and Liz was like, ooh, that was good. That was, really went for it. I highly doubt that happened. But if it is, that's the only reason, that's the only way that this is not monstrous. Even if this is all for show, even if the producers told her to do that. Now, you could argue that maybe there's a monetary incentive that is manufactured or held out as a carrot by the production for her to do stuff like this. But she's still doing it. She's still making choices to do this. And we know she's done it so many other times. We have seen the moments where it's captured on camera. Imagine what she's been through in life as a child. It's just, it's not funny. It's not entertainment.
Now, bitch. I took up for you, bitch. Now, that.
We've got guests here.
Let's go.
Okay, finally, some of the producers stepped in, which might mean that there was not shenanigans, but they should have stepped in a lot earlier. As soon as she was getting in Liz's face like that, and it's predictable. I knew something like that was happen. I didn't know exactly what it would look like, but I'm like, Angela is going to, whatever we think would be uncalled for and ridiculous, Angela will take it times 10. And someone will have to pull her off of Liz, which is what happened. Yeah. And just think about Michael. Now, Michael's in Africa, I believe. He's still back home. So maybe he doesn't get this now, but he has gotten it, and we've seen it. So, yeah, ick. Just one giant ick.
You break your mother out now. I'll jump in orange, bitch. I'll jump in orange, mother.
On Reddit, you'll see videos of people on the street or in a grocery store or a Target or a Walmart acting this way. And, I was just thinking, like, what's the background? And you're just thinking, where is this person coming from? And then you get to see it and the background, and you're still confused, right? But yeah, I think it's the humiliation trauma. And Angela might be particularly susceptible to it because I think she's been drinking. She might be humiliated because Michael isn't there. She might be humiliated because, or particularly prone to that because it's the beginning of shooting. She might feel humiliated because of maybe what Liz said was the last straw on the camel's back of you overtalk everybody. But yeah, it's pretty awful. You would just like to think that the producers would say, look, Angela is a cash cow for this TV show, but we have to have a line somewhere. And yeah, she's super entertaining. And yes, she does go off sometimes, and that is part of the entertainment. But if she gets in someone's face, then producers, you gotta step in. And we might even have a talk with Angela. It's like, Angela, you could spout, but you can't get in someone's face like that. That can be traumatizing to other people. It's traumatizing to watch it. We don't want that kind of content. So you're going to have to stop that. We love you. You're a cash cow for us. You've put my kids through college with the amount of money that I've made because you have just been so wonderful for 90 Day Fiancé. But there's a line, and if you cross that line, someone's going to stop you. I'm just going to tell you that Big John is going to step in. So try to restrain that. Go off verbally, but don't get in someone's face. Okay, well, that does it for that episode. Let's adjourn there. Tune in next time when I continue watching. And everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.